Let's move on to the next lesson, which is the lesson 4, entitled the General Rules and Equipment in Processing Evidence. So in every evidence in a crime, there is a general rules and equipment processing, which is the number 1, you must use a protective gloves. Use protective glove because if possible, avoid touching individual smears or traces. Um, and also you must change gloves after handling each kind of test and collection of trace evidence. Also cover surfaces where materials are to placed, and also you must next is avoid coughing or sneezing on evidence or materials because it may contaminate the evidence. Next is packaging of biological materials. In packaging biological materials, you must use paper packaging for all biological materials or materials that are soiled with biological matter, and also separate outer packages to be used for trace evidence. Next is do not mix materials or samples that is different from different people, and also fold the opening of the bag twice and seal it with a tape. Next is a special precautions. In evidence, you must be precautions. You must be caution to every evidence that is been seen in every crime scene, because you must make an explicit note if a person from whom material has been collected. You must prevent contamination by avoiding all contact between collected evidence. And also, packages contain collected materials must not be opened until the examination in the laboratory is to commence. So, there are materials for evidence, packaging, and also sealing. So, materials of evidence, packaging, and marking and sealing is that, first, acceptable packaging container. In a acceptable packaging container, it is depending on the type of evidence. Just like paper bags, plastic bags, boxes, manila envelopes, small glasses, vials, and also metal cans. So these are the acceptable packaging containers. So next is the acceptable seals. So in a acceptable seals, it is the tamper-proof evidence tape, the reinforced packaging tape, and the hot seals. So in or we can say the acceptable seals are those those materials that being sealed well with a use of a tape or seals. Next is the information on each packaging should be minimally included. For example, the name of the agency case number, the item number, all the date, and also the investigator's identifier. So in this information, it is information to whom to whom in to whom who investigate, or to the person who investigate the crime. Next is the packaging of evidence should be included on where it was found, by whom, date and time that is being found, and the description of the item. So next is that the traditional methods of preserving or recording evidence. So in preserving or recording evidence, there is a photographs, audio, and or videotape, microfilm, photostats, and Xerox. So in this photography, it is considered to be the most practical and useful and the reliable means of preservation, because photo camera is available in many places, and also it is a unlimited number of copies can be reproduced. Kumbaga, ang tabang ani niya is to gather evidence with a to identify, to preserve some evidence through recording. So next is that identification of voice from the recording instrument may sometimes be used, also sometimes difficult, because audio recording may be dependent on the speed, the volume, the pitch, and also the timbre of the person that is being recorded. So next is the sketching. So sketching, if no scientific apparatus to preserve evidence is available, then a rough drawing of the scene or object to be preserved is done. For example, sketching of the things that is happen, or sketching to the place where the crime is being done. So next is that the observation and description. In a observation and description, it is a description is done by putting into words the person or things to be preserved. It must be a vivid impression on the mind of the reader. Through picture of being described, the use of portrait may be used. Next, so what is a portrait parley? So a portrait parley is a spoken picture. It refers to verbal, accurate, and picture requisite description of the person that is being identified. So next is the mannequin method. So in a mannequin method, it is a miniature model of a scene or a human body indicating marks of the various aspects to the things being preserved. In short, mao ni siya ang person being used, or a human body na miniature na kumbaga replacement or kanang replacement sa tao, because it is needed to be preserved, and also it is quite impressive to the viewer as the nature and the severity of the indicator of the full detail of the scene. So next is the preservation in the mind of the witness. So preservation in the mind of the witness, a person who perceive something relevant for proper adjudication of a case may be a witness in the court if he has the power to transmit to other what he perceived. So in this, a capacity of a person is to remember the place, the time, and event that may destroy the modified of the length, and the preservation of its coterminous with the life of the witness. Human mind can easily be subjected to many extraneous factors that may cause distortion of the truth. So next is the written notes. Written notes on what the investigator or have seen or have been observed, and also developing the lifting fingerprints, the gathering of physical evidence, which is the materials that being used to the crime, and also plaster cast, and the written statement of subjects and the witnesses. So in this, ang written statement mao na siya ang statement kung unsa statement sa person or the victim, and also the witnesses kung unsa ang nahitabo sa crime na gibuhat sa suspects or sa suspect. So next is the integrity of trace evidence. So in integrity of trace evidence, it is the protection of a trace evidence from loose contamination is essential. One of the primary path of this contamination is from the collector to the evidence. So in this case, the collector must ensure that no contamination or no trace is deposited along with the evidence in question. So this may include hair or fiber from the collector. To prevent contamination, crime scene personnel must wear personal protective equipment for them to make sure that the evidence may not be contaminated by the investigator, because it may lose or contaminate the evidence that be used in a court. So through this, the person who investigate must use such gloves, masks, and trace contaminant-free implement when collecting some evidence. Next, what is the principle of chain custody? So principal chain of custody, it is evidence that is passes through several persons for several purposes. Due to this, the principle of chain custody must be observed. In short, every evidence mapasa sa kada tao or every person because kada person na ay purpose on how to examine those evidence. Every evidence or every custody of a person has a designated to handle it. And also, chain of custody, it is defined as what I have said, it is passed through different person who can handle and possess. Just like the pieces of evidence, the moment that they were collected, marked, and tagged, up to the time of the final disposition of the case. So next, what is the chain of custody rule? So chain of custody rule, it is the paramount importance to any investigation. It is the unbroken sequence of events that is caused by an item of evidence from the time it was found at the crime scene to the time it appears in court. So, chain of custody rule, it is the importance of the investigation. Every link is documented by date, its time, and also the handling of the individual. So, what was done with the evidence by that individual? If chain of custody is broken, then if the evidence cannot be accounted in one step of its journey from crime scene to the courtroom, it is rendered and it is admissible or useless to the case. So in short, ang evidence, if dili siya matarong og pasa or cannot be handled properly, then it is admissible and useless to the case. So next is, what does chain of custody do? So in chain of custody, it proves the integrity of a pieces of evidence. A paper trial is maintained so that the person who had charge of the evidence at any given time can be known quickly and summoned to testify during the trial as if required. So, a record of chain of evidence must be maintained and established in the court. Whenever presenting evidence as an exhibit, otherwise the evidence may be admissible in the court, leading to serious question regarding its legitimacy, integrity, and examinations rendered upon it. So, in short, ang chain of custody or ang binuhatan sa chain of custody is that they give time, they give importance to the evidence, because once the evidence cannot be handled or cannot be present, the case may be admissible and be useless to the court. So that is all about in lesson 4, the general rules and the equipment in processing a evidence. So once again, I am Shervin Chanarandolana, a second year BS Criminology student. So that is all my report in chapter 3, the evidence. So that's all. Thank you for listening.